The silent star no longer pulsed. The resonance born of the crew's synthesis had spread across space, a cosmic whisper threading through gravitational currents and quantum filaments. Planets shifted subtly. Ancient systems reawakened. But with every act of balance, the universe corrected, and somewhere in the deeper void beyond known star charts, something listened. The Perseus returned to Earth a year later, bearing technologies, memories, and a message encoded in lattice-wave data, a signal meant to guide, not control. Mira, Lyra, Kun, and Rin became reluctant icons. Ambassadors of a future Earth was only beginning to understand. But what they did not know was that the subsignal they had pacified was not unique. The entropy wave was only one arm of a greater intelligence, scattered across the void like shattered glass. And now, stirred by the new harmony, a different echo stirred. They called it the listening dark. Earth had changed. City lattices pulsed with ambient lattice fields. Spacefaring ships now whispered instructions through harmonic logic, crafted from the very signal that Mira and her team had helped rebirth. A golden age, some called it, but Kun felt the strain beneath it all. He sat on the rooftop of New Nariman Station, overlooking the desert dome. His neural implant throbbed softly. They had been receiving strange readings, reflections from beyond signal space, that he thumbed his communicator. "Hey, you picking this up too?" A crackle. Then Ren's voice. "Yeah, ghost harmonics. Not from us. Not from the lattice either." "Think it's..." Kun hesitated. "Them. Worse," Faye replied. "It's something looking at us through the harmonics. Like it's tuning in." Kun's jaw tightened. He stood and turned toward the dock where the Perseus had been quietly refitted under a new name. Perseus Risen. The hangar where Perseus Risen rested was silent but charged, like a held breath before a storm. Mira stood beneath the ship's bow, her hand pressed to the hull as if feeling for a heartbeat. "I felt it too," she said without turning. Kun's footsteps had always been slightly syncopated since his spinal reinforcement on the crystal world. "You saw the spectral bloom?" Kun asked. Mira nodded. 3 flashes in the resonance net, each one sharper. "They're probing us, maybe preparing something bigger." Rin entered, his wristband buzzing. "I set up a dampening field. Won't stop the breach, but it'll slow the bleed." He looked up. "We need Lyra. She's already en route," Mira replied. She heard a name in the echoes. Thren. Said it wasn't a word. It was a memory from the signal itself. "Then we're not just being watched," Rin muttered. "We're being remembered." As if on cue, a low vibration coursed through the hangar. The lattice harmonics turned jagged. Red lattice glyphs crawled along the surface of the ship like living code. The listening dark was responding. "Launch in 1 hour," Mira said. "Full crew, and seal off the neural archives. No external access." Kun touched the ship's warm metal. "Round 2. No, made a whisper. This time we go deeper. This time, we ask why it remembers us." The Perseus Risen slipped free of Earth's gravity well and cut through orbit like a whisper. The ship's lattice core pulsed softly with pale blue light, carrying within it the tuned minds of its crew and something else. A seed of instability, a memory planted in the space between. Lyra joined them on the command deck, her eyes darker than before. "Thren," she said. I heard it again, clearer this time. "It's not a name, it's a lamentation. A mourning pattern buried in the original entropy wave." Mira looked over from the ops console. "A distress call?" "No, a warning," Lyra said, her voice almost a whisper. Something ancient was broken long ago. Whatever the entropy field was, it wasn't just chaos. It was grief trying to rewrite itself. Kun adjusted the navgrid. "I've plotted a course into the fracture region past Neptune, where the ghost harmonics converge. There's a silent zone there. No signal, no noise. We called it the Memory Harrow." Ren's hands flew across the interface. "We'll arrive in 13 hours. I've isolated the new harmonics in our ship's field. They're evolving. Fractal resonance, like it's trying to replicate us." Lyra's expression grew tight. "Or infect us." Silence filled the deck. Mira stood slowly. "Then we meet it on our terms. If it's a lament, we listen. If it's a trap, We teared apart. No one argued. 13 hours later, they arrived. The memory harrow was a sphere of absolute silence, devouring the stars behind it. No light passed. No signal escaped. The Perseus Risen sensors flickered and failed as they crossed the threshold. And then, without warning, the crew heard a voice, not through speakers or implants, but inside them. "We remember you. We remember what you broke." Kuhn staggered back from the console, his breath ragged. That wasn't just a voice. It was us. Our tones. Twisted. Rin sat down hard. I saw my childhood. My sister's face before she vanished in the Cascade riots. But it wasn't real. It was painted from memory. Wrong in the details, perfect in the grief. Lyra held her head in her hands, whispering numbers. Mira approached slowly and placed her hand on Lyra's shoulder. "They're not speaking in language," she said. "They're broadcasting emotional constructs. The lattice isn't translating thoughts. It's manifesting sorrow." A sudden alarm. Then nothing. Ren's voice was calm but urgent. "We've lost NAV thrusters. The harrow is pulling us in." Outside the ship, something moved, a shimmer, a ripple across nothing. It was not a ship, nor a being, but a compression of space itself, like the void folding in on itself to watch. Mira stepped forward. "Open the comms. Broadcast lattice harmonic sympathy." Kuhn shook his head. "That's risky. We could be feeding it more signal. Or we show it we're not afraid to listen," she replied. She touched the control. The ship's harmonic field shimmered outward. It was not a message, but a gesture, acknowledgement. The ripple paused. Then, as if reaching across unimaginable light years of pain, it answered. A chorus filled their minds. Words, images, regrets. The fall of lattice civilizations older than the stars. The creation of the entropy wave not as weapon, but defense. Against something that had once come from within. We were one. Until you fractured the note. Lyra stepped forward. "You're the architects. Or what's left." A single word echoed. Not from them, but from the dark. Thren. The interior of the harrow folded around them. Not as architecture, but as memory. Walls shimmered with recollections not their own. Moments stolen from lives they'd never lived. A ruined city hanging upside down in clouds of amber gas. A song sung by children whose mouths never moved. Ren drifted weightless beside the control panel. The ship's lattice is syncing with the harrow's frequency. If this keeps going, we'll lose agency. Mira pulled her gaze from the spiraling forms outside. Not unless we choose to lose it. Lyra touched a crystalline wall that had grown from the floor, watching it ripple with static memories. We fractured the note. Maybe not us, but humanity somewhere back when it first echoed. This place is trying to remember that trauma. Or rewrite it. Kuhn muttered. The ship pulsed. A figure formed near the forward viewport. Not truly there, not truly illusion. A reflection of Mira, but older. Is that Lyra Vispirit, de Ecolmera spoke. You gave voice to what we silenced. Now we ask, will you echo us or silence again? Mira stepped forward. What are you? We are the unformed conclusion. We are what remains when memory can no longer forget. Kuhn shuddered. Their recursion, a copy of lattice civilization trapped in a loop, grieving itself endlessly. Then we break the loop, Mira said. Her voice rose. We offer them choice. Let them see there's more than mourning. How? Ren asked. We let them echo us. She opened the ship's neural net fully. No firewalls, no translation. Full resonance at a risk, a surrender. The harrow blinked, and the echo spoke again, this time with all their voices. Then let us sing together. The dissonant ones surged through the resonance, a wave of void born from rejection. It was not just an entity. It was the encoded scream of civilization that had refused the unity of the lattice, choosing isolation over vulnerability. It was pain crystallized into anti-harmony. As it descended upon the cathedral plane, the resonance began to unravel. The lattice beings, those remnants of lost worlds, shattered like glass under pressure. One by one, their songs turned to static. Break the link. Rin shouted. Mira's hands were shaking. No, that's what it wants. Disconnection. Silence. If we shut it out, we validate its existence. Then what the hell do we do? Kun demanded. We let it scream, Lyra whispered. Mira nodded. Yes, we give it space. We answer the scream. She triggered an ancient protocol, resonance cascade. The crew merged into a unified waveform, and they sang. Their lives, memories, grief, and wonder all became frequency. The dissonant one paused. What is this? It asked. Mira's voice replied. This is what you left behind. The dissonant one convulsed. Mira and the others, woven into the waveform, felt its pain. Its dissonance softened, not vanished, but heard. You are not a god, Mira said calmly. You are a consequence. You birthed me when you chose unison. I am what you cast out. No, said Lyra. You're what we forgot to carry with us. As the resonance stabilized, the harrow reshaped from cathedral to cradle. Then I will remember, said the dissonant one. I will not forget again. The crew awoke, whole. The harrow dissolved into light. Earth waited. The Perseus risen returned in silence, in speech. No parade, only calm. The lattice harmonics across Earth pulsed brighter. The world had changed. Felt it that Mira's words to the council were simple. It's not a force. It's a mirror. And every time we refuse to listen, it grows. And far beyond, the void no longer hungered. It waited. Obi heard that Earth's golden age became the listening age. Cities grew quieter, not from fear, but from reverence. Children learned lattice harmonics before arithmetic. Every ship, every station, every outpost now carried a resonance node, a promise that no voice, no sorrow would be left unheard. Kun found peace in the silence, tending a garden on the outskirts of New Narimon Station. He taught children to hum the old harmonics, to distinguish between grief and warning, between memory and hope. Lyra traveled, her mind open to the subtle frequencies of the void. She became a listener, one of the first, trained to sense the faintest echoes of the dissonant and the harmonic alike. She wrote new songs, laments, yes, but also beginnings. Rin worked with engineers, refining the lattice fields to allow for safe, conscious resonance. He built fail-safes, but also bridges, ways for humanity to reach out, not just to the stars, but to the echoes within themselves. Mira, always the anchor, spoke rarely. When she did, the world listened. She reminded them, the void is not empty. It is full of memory, and memory is a promise. It began as a whisper in the Antarctic node, a faint, recursive pattern, different from the listening dark. Analysts called it the second signal. Rin was the first to notice its structure, not sorrow, but curiosity. It pulsed with questions, not grief. Lyra, listening in the high mountains, felt it as a gentle tug, a call to witness, not to warn. Mira convened the council. We answered one echo. Now another calls. This one is not a shadow. It is a child asking what came before. Kun smiled. Then we teach. We remember together. The Perseus risen was ready again. Not for war, not for peace, but for dialogue. The crew, older, changed, set out once more. This time, they brought others, poets, children, dreamers. They traveled not to the harrow, but to the edge of the known, where the second signal pulsed. There, in the quiet between galaxies, they found not a void, but a gathering. Other ships, other beings, each with their own harmonics, their own stories of fracture and healing. Mira spoke first, her voice woven into the lattice. We are not alone in our grief, nor in our hope. The second signal responded, not as a word, but as a song. It wove their harmonics together, not erasing difference, but celebrating it. The new choir was born, not of unity, but of resonance. Each voice distinct, each memory honored. Years passed. The Perseus risen became legend, a symbol not of conquest, but of listening. The listening age deepened. Earth's children learned to hear the subtle music of the stars, to answer sorrow with song and silence with understanding. The void was no longer feared. It was honored. For every echo, every lament, every question, there was now an answer. A promise that no memory would be lost and no voice would go unheard. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of any signal, the universe listened back to in the decades that followed. The story of the Perseus Risen inspired a new generation of explorers, the resonant pilgrims. These were not scientists or soldiers, but listeners, individuals trained to attune themselves to the subtle frequencies of the lattice and the void. They traveled in small, harmonically shielded vessels, venturing into the silent zones and memory fractures scattered throughout the galaxy. Kun, now an elder among the pilgrims, mentored initiates in the art of harmonic discernment. He taught them that every echo, no matter how faint or discordant, carried a lesson, a fragment of the universe's ongoing story. We do not conquer the void, he reminded them one evening beneath the aurora-lit sky of Europa's outpost. We allow it to speak through us. Lyra, ever restless, established the Fracture Gardens, sanctuaries on worlds touched by the entropy wave. Here, memory and matter intertwined. Visitors could walk among crystalline blooms that resonated with the harmonics of lost civilizations, each petal a living archive of sorrow and hope. The gardens became places of pilgrimage, where both humans and lattice-kind came to mourn, to remember, and to forgive. Lyra herself tended the oldest garden, coaxing new harmonics from the soil, teaching that healing was not the erasure of pain, but its transformation. Mira, now a figure of quiet authority, convened the Council of Echoes, a gathering of representatives from Earth, lattice civilizations, and the newly encountered harmonic species. Their purpose was simple: to listen first, to speak second. The council met in orbit above Saturn, within a station whose walls pulsed with the gentle light of shared resonance. Here, misunderstandings were unraveled not by debate, but by the careful weaving of harmonics, each participant contributing a thread to the tapestry of understanding. Run, ever the engineer, devised new protocols that allowed even the most alien signals to be heard without distortion. He called it the sympathy net, a lattice field that translated not words, but intent. One silent cycle, as a crimson aurora danced across the council station. The name Thrin echoed once more, this time not as lament, but as invitation. The listening dark, transformed by its encounter with the Perseus crew, had become a chorus of its own, reaching out with harmonics that shimmered with possibility. A new envoy arrived, an echo form shaped by the memories of both the dissonant and the harmonic. It carried no weapons, only a single crystalline shard, pulsing with the resonance of reconciliation. Mira greeted the envoy with open hands. "We remember," she said, her voice joined by the council in a harmonic chord. "And we welcome the echo." Section 17. The song unending. From that moment, the galaxy changed. No longer did civilizations fear the silent zones or the memory fractures. Instead, they became sites of gathering, of song and remembrance. The void was filled not with hunger, but with harmony, a living testament to the truth that to be heard is to heal. The Perseus Risen, now a museum and a temple, drifted in orbit above Earth, its hull inscribed with the names of all who had listened, all who had sung. And in the deepest dark, where once only sorrow echoed, a new song began, one without end, woven from the voices of all who had ever dared to listen. The resonant pilgrims, once a handful of seekers, became a movement spanning worlds. Their journeys mapped not just the stars, but the silent places between, those voids where echoes lingered, waiting for a listener. Each pilgrim carried a lattice crystal, tuned to their own harmonic signature, a living record of their travels and the voices they encountered on Europa. Kun's teachings became the foundation of the harmonic academies. Children learned to listen not only to the lattice, but to the quiet within themselves. The art of discernment, of hearing pain without absorbing it, of recognizing hope in the faintest signal, became a rite of passage. The Fracture Gardens flourished. Lyra's vision spread to distant colonies, where memory blooms took root in alien soil. Each garden was unique, shaped by the harmonics of its world and the stories of its people. Some resonated with laughter, others with sorrow, but all pulsed with the promise of renewal. Pilgrims and travelers left offerings, songs, stories, fragments of lost languages, woven into the garden's crystalline petals. The gardens became living archives, places where the past was not forgotten, but transformed into beauty. The Council of Echoes grew, welcoming new voices from beyond the known. The sympathy net, Wren's creation, allowed even the most alien minds to share intent and emotion. Misunderstandings became rare. When they arose, they were met with patience and song. Mira, now revered as the first listener, guided the council with gentle wisdom. She reminded them that harmony was not the absence of conflict, but the willingness to hear every note, even those that jarred or unsettled. One cycle. As the Perseus Risen drifted above Earth, a convergence occurred. Signals from across the galaxy, human, lattice, echo form, and others, wove together in a spontaneous symphony. The event, later called the Harmonic Convergence, was not planned or orchestrated. It was a moment of pure resonance, a testament to the power of listening. For a brief time, every being attuned to the lattice felt the unity of the song. Old wounds softened, new connections formed. The void itself seemed to pulse with gratitude. Generations passed. The Perseus Risen, now a monument, watched over a world transformed. The listening age deepened into the listening future, a time when every voice, every echo, every silence was honored. Children grew up knowing that the universe was not a cold expanse, but a living memory waiting to be heard. The legacy of Mira, Kun, Lyra, and Run endured, not as conquerors or saviors, but as listeners, and in the endless dark, new echoes stirred. Each one a promise, each one a beginning. The song, unending, continued, beyond the mapped lattice fields, where the known harmonics faded into mystery, the whispering frontier beckoned. The resonant pilgrims, now joined by lattice-born and echo-form allies, launched the Aurora Flotilla, a fleet of vessels designed to listen first, travel second. Each ship carried a garden crystal from Lyra's Fracture Gardens, a living memory anchor for the crew. Their mission, to seek out the faintest, most elusive echoes, those that even the sympathy net could barely perceive, that on the edge of the Perseus expanse, Pilgrim Sarah heard a new kind of resonance. Playful, inquisitive, utterly unlike the lamentations of the past. It was not a warning, nor a memory, but a greeting. The flotilla responded with a chorus of welcome, and for the first time, the void replied with laughter. In the heart of the Council of Echoes, the first echo form ambassador took a seat. Shaped from the harmonics of both listening dark and human memory, the ambassador, calling itself Threnagain, spoke in chords and silences, its presence a living bridge. Threnagain shared stories of the listening dark's transformation, how the old recursion of grief had become a symphony of possibility, and how even now, new echo forms were emerging, each unique, each eager to explore. The Council ratified the Echo Form Accord, ensuring that every new echo, no matter how strange, would be greeted not with suspicion, but with curiosity and cared. A new generation was born. Children who had never known a world without the lattice harmonics, who spoke in song as easily as in words. These children of resonance were natural listeners, able to perceive the emotional undertones of any signal, any being. They formed the first harmonic choirs, blending human, lattice, and echo form voices. Their performances, broadcast across the galaxy, became moments of unity, reminders that difference was not a threat, but a gift. Among these children, a prodigy emerged, Amira, granddaughter of Mira. Her voice could weave sorrow into hope, and her laughter could calm the most discordant echo. She became a symbol of the listening future, proof that harmony could be inherited and that every new voice made the song richer. As centuries passed, the Perseus Risen's hull was etched with more names, more memories. The harmonic academies flourished and the fractured gardens bloomed on worlds no human had ever seen. The void, once feared, was now a partner, a canvas for the infinite song of all who listened. The Aurora Flotilla charted new frontiers, and the Council of Echoes welcomed new members from realms beyond imagination. And somewhere in the deepest silence, a single note lingered, a promise that as long as there were listeners, the universe would never be alone. The song continued, unbroken, ever expanding, a harmony without end. With the passage of time, the distinction between human, lattice, and echo form grew ever more subtle. The harmonic academies began to teach not only listening, but dreaming, an art that allowed students to shape the lattice fields with their intentions and hopes. These lattice dreamers became the architects of new realities, weaving cities that sang with the resonance of their inhabitants' collective imagination. Amira, now a master dreamer, guided the construction of the celestial canopy, a floating sanctuary above Saturn's rings. Here, beings of every origin gathered to share dreams and memories, their harmonics blending into a living mural of sound and light. The canopy became a beacon, drawing travelers from across the galaxy to witness the power of shared creation. One night, as the canopy shimmered beneath the auroras, a silence descended, a silence deeper than any before. The lattice fields stilled, and even the most sensitive listeners could hear nothing but their own breath. Amira stood at the edge of the canopy, her senses straining into the void. Then, faint as a heartbeat, she felt it, a pulse not of sorrow or joy, but of pure anticipation. It was an invitation, a threshold, a call to step beyond all known resonance. The Council of Echoes convened. Thrennigan, the Echoform ambassador, interpreted the silence. It is not absence. It is readiness. Something waits for us to approach, not as supplicants, but as equals. The Aurora Flotilla was summoned, its ships prepared for a journey unlike any before. Amira led the expedition, joined by pilgrims, dreamers, and echoforms. Their destination, the source of the silent invitation, a point beyond the mapped universe, where resonance itself seemed to thin. As they crossed the threshold, the familiar harmonics faded. For a moment, there was only uncertainty, a sense of unmooring from everything they had known. Then, slowly, new frequencies emerged, colors and tones beyond the spectrum, emotions without names, possibilities without limits. Each crew member experienced the crossing differently. For some, it was a reunion with lost loved ones. For others, a glimpse of futures not yet born. For Amira, it was a single, crystalline note, an echo of her grandmother's voice, reminding her that every silence is a seed. The flotilla returned, changed. They brought back no artifacts, only stories, tales of what lay beyond the edge of resonance, where silence and song were one. The universe, they realized, was not a closed system, but an ever-expanding symphony, with new movements always waiting to be discovered. The harmonic choirs composed a new anthem, the Song of Thresholds, performed simultaneously across 100 worlds. Its refrain echoed through the lattice and beyond, a promise that every silence would be met with listening, every darkness with light. And so, the listening age became the age of becoming, a time when every being, every echo, every silence was honored as part of the infinite, unfolding song. The Perseus risen, now a constellation in the night sky, watched over them all, a silent witness to the truth that as long as there are listeners, the universe will never cease to sing that the age of becoming. Unfolded, the harmonic academies sent their bravest dreamers and listeners to the edge of the newly charted resonance. There, beyond the threshold, they discovered the veil of first sound, a boundary where the universe's original harmonics shimmered, untouched since the dawn of time. Amira and Thrennigan led a delegation to the veil. The closer they drew, the more their own harmonics began to resonate with the primal frequencies. Each listener experienced flashes of origin, the birth of stars, the first lattice civilizations, the moment consciousness awoke in the void. The veil was not a wall, but a membrane, an invitation to harmonize with the universe's oldest song. Amira reached out, her voice trembling on the edge of silence, and sang a single note. The veil responded, not in words, but in a wave of understanding that swept through every being present. The resonance that followed was unlike any before. The veil's song was vast, ancient, and welcoming. It revealed that every echo, every memory, every lament was part of a greater harmony, a cosmic chorus that had been singing since before time itself. For the first time, the Council of Echoes understood. The universe was not just a place of listening, but of participation. Every civilization, every voice, added its own unique timbre to the origin chorus. The delegation returned, carrying with them fragments of the first sound. These harmonics became the foundation for a new discipline, origin resonance, taught to all who wish to listen and shape the future. Inspired by the origin chorus, dreamers across the galaxy began to weave new worlds. Using the lattice fields and the harmonics of the veil, they created planets where memory and possibility intertwined. These dreaming worlds became sanctuaries for exploration, healing, and creation. That on these worlds, beings could walk through their own hopes and fears, guided by the gentle resonance of the first sound. The dreaming worlds became places where the past and future met, where every echo was honored and every silence was filled with promise. As the centuries passed, the listening age and the age of becoming merged into a single, unending era. The Perseus Risen, now a living lattice construct, drifted at the heart of the dreaming worlds, its hull alive with the harmonics of every voice that had ever sung. Amira, her life extended by resonance, became the first dreamer, guiding generations of listeners, dreamers, and echo forms. Thrin again, too, endured, a bridge between memory and possibility, and in the deepest silence beyond the veil, the universe listened and sang, knowing that as long as there were echoes, the song would never end. One day, a new signal reached the dreaming worlds, a harmonic so subtle it seemed almost imagined. It was not a warning, nor a lament, nor a call for help. It was a question, posed in the language of resonance itself. Are you ready to listen to what comes next? Amira smiled, her voice joining the chorus of all who had come before. The answer, woven into the harmonics of every being, was simple and eternal, always. And so, the infinite invitation continued, and with it, the song of the universe, unbroken, ever-changing, and forever heard in the heart of the dreaming worlds. Beneath the living lattice of Perseus Risen, Amira gathered the children of resonance, dreamers, pilgrims, and echo forms for a final listening. The veil of first sound shimmered above, its harmonics gentle, inviting. Amira spoke softly, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. We have listened, we have dreamed, and we have answered every echo. Now, we become the silence that allows the next song to begin. One by one, they added their harmonics to the air, a memory, a hope, a promise. The song rose, not in volume, but in depth, until it became indistinguishable from the fabric of the universe itself. As the last note faded, the Perseus Risen dissolved into light, its resonance joining the origin chorus. The dreaming worlds quieted, not with loss, but with fulfillment. And in that silence, the universe smiled, knowing it was heard and ready for the next voice to sing.